you scared to go to office hours? A lot of students have the same fear. A lot of people have misconceptions about what office hours are, who should be going, and what benefits there are to showing up to a teacher or professor's office hours. Now I get it, office hours can be really scary and intimidating. I didn't even want to go to any office hours for any of my teachers or professors until later in college. And then I realized how great they are and some of the many benefits that you can get out of going to office hours for your teacher or professor. So in this video, I'm going to go over who should go to office hours, some of the best reasons to go to office hours, and give you some tips and strategies if you're really worried about showing up to office hours for whatever reason. You're going to walk away with a checklist for some really great pointers and things to talk about with your professors or teachers by the end of this video. So stay tuned and get ready to learn all about the benefits of office hours. So there's two main groups of students who might want to go to office hours for a teacher or professor, and you could be in both or either of these groups. The first group are students that are not struggling in the class. And yes, if you're in that group of students, you should still go to office hours for your teacher or professor, and we'll talk about why. The other group are students that are struggling, have poor grades, or just really confused about content. So we'll talk about those second. Now let's go back to the first group. If you're not struggling in a class, why should you even show up to office hours for a teacher? Doesn't showing up to office hours show weakness or that you need help? Well, let me let you in on a little secret. Asking for help or getting to know somebody and asking questions is not a sign of weakness, it's actually a sign of strength. So even if you feel like you're not confused or not struggling enough to get personalized help from a professor, you should still go to office hours. Even if you're the star student in the class, it's not a bad use of your time. There are lots of reasons why you should go to office hours even if you're not having problems in a class. You can learn about opportunities from the professor. You can get to know the teacher or professor better and learn about their interests and research. You'll get connected to their network and maybe get more opportunities and things put in front of you that you didn't know about before. You could learn about or get connected to future career opportunities, and you never know, you might need to ask that professor or teacher for a letter of recommendation down the line in the future. If you've had a conversation sharing your passions or talking about something that you are both interested in, then that's even better material for that teacher or professor to write about later down the road. Now, going to office hours shouldn't be just to get good recommendations for future programs or things you're applying to. If you're interested in a class, going to have a conversation with your professor or teacher could be really enlightening and interesting for you. Remember, that teacher is a specialist in their field, and they can offer really cool insights probably beyond what you had time in class for. They might have great stories, things to talk about, things to share, and they might even be really passionate about that particular course material. Now, if you want to go to office hours to make that connection, but you're not really sure what to say or how to get started, you can come to office hours with a list of topics prepared. I did this when I was in grad school a lot. I even wrote it down on a little note card, and I told my professors up front, okay, I've got a list of things I wanted to talk to you about today, so I don't forget any of them. And they were just little jot bullet points that I had on a note card so I wouldn't forget some of the main important questions I wanted to ask. And of course, sometimes we got off track and talked about interesting things too, but it's always great to go in with a list if you feel like that's something that could help you. So what are some things you could put on this list if you're going to talk to a teacher or professor of office hours? One, you could always improvise and get to know the professor. Ask about things on their walls, posters, books, if you're going to a physical office hours location. If you're doing it over Zoom, you might want to ask about their background. Ask lots of open-ended questions. For example, if you're interested in a topic that's related to their course or their field, you could say, I'm exploring this topic. Can you tell me a little bit more about so-and-so? Or, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with my career. Could you share a little bit more about this particular path? Or what should I do to go into this path? Remember, go beyond the yes or no's and go beyond things that you already know the answers to. Maybe you're still trying to figure out where you want to major or go to college or grad school. This professor could have a lot of great insights into that. You could say, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do after college, or I'm still trying to figure out what I should major in. What kind of information should I gather to get to know this field a little bit better? Definitely ask career advice if they're in the field or a related field to what you might want to do. And you can even just ask, what was your path from college to where you are now? People love to talk about themselves, and it's a great open-ended question for the professor to share a lot about who they are. The professor's probably going to want to hear from you too. So think about a topic that you found really interesting in your own personal research or within that class. What's something that really sparked your interest? Or what's a tangential topic, something related to something that went on in class that you could talk about with the professor? In one of my college classes, I was taking an anthropology course, which wasn't my field of study, but we were reading about medicine and specifically manic depressive disorder. I had just seen the Broadway musical Next to Normal, so we spent a long time talking about that and how it related to our reading and the coursework. I ended up being encouraged by the professor to email the author of the book we were reading in class, and then I had a really cool opportunity to have a discourse with the author of a text that we had to do for class. It was great and an opportunity I never would have thought of if I hadn't started that conversation with my professor in college. Even if you're not currently struggling within that class or subject, talk about a topic that you struggled with the most so far this year. Let them know that you had a tough time learning about a particular thing or grasping a certain concept. Even if you've now gotten it and understood it, this will give the professor insights about maybe something that they might want to focus on more with other students. If you're really nervous about all this, my last tip is to attend office hours at the same time as a buddy. A lot of teachers or professors have open office hours where more than one student can drop in at a time. It's okay to pair up and go in together. It may make it seem less intimidating. And contrary to what it may seem like, you're not bothering teachers or professors when you show up to office hours. It's part of their job, and they love talking to students outside the context of the classroom. All right, so let's get to the second category of students. Let's say you really do need help and you're scared to go to office hours because you're afraid of what the professor might think of you. You think asking for help shows a sign of weakness. You don't want them to know that you're struggling because you've put on this facade of being a really good student so far, or you're just so far behind you have no idea where to start and it's just overwhelming. Well, for any of those situations, going to office hours can really benefit you and your progress in that class. You may have poor grades and you want to talk about how to bring up your grade. You may just be confused about a particular topic and want to understand that topic better. Or you might have a personal situation that you feel like the professor needs to know about and you'd like to go and share. Take my tips from the first part of that video and make a list of things that you want to ask or talk about with that professor. If you've taken the time to come see them or make an appointment with them, they will be more than happy to listen to you in that office hours period. This can go over much better than emailing because you can have the back and forth conversation and they can answer any questions along the way. Maybe something you're stuck on is a misconception that they can clear up pretty quickly. Or maybe you've done poorly on an assignment and they can offer strategies for how to bring your grade up in the future. If you're really nervous about going and you've, let's say, walked past your professor's door 5 times and you can't bring up the nerve to go in, set an appointment ahead of time. Email them and then hold yourself accountable to going to that appointment. If they've set aside the time specifically for you, then it's going to make you more likely to actually show up and interact with them during their office hours. You can also tell them at the end of a class period to hold yourself accountable. As you're leaving the class, say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about this. I'm going to drop by office hours later today or later this week. That way, hopefully saying it out loud, you'll hold yourself to it. Lastly, if you have a lot of anxiety going to office hours and it makes you really nervous walking into that door or pressing the login button to go to Zoom where you're going to be meeting one-on-one or in a small group with a professor, you can either practice the conversation beforehand, write down what you want to say, but my favorite strategy is just to take a few deep breaths before you go in. Don't feel like this is going to make or break your career or they're going to judge you or anything scary is going to happen. This is all about your learning process, and professors and teachers are there to help you learn. If you go to office hours and you don't come out feeling like you got the help or support that you needed, more than likely you're in an institution with other professors or teachers that teach similar subjects. You can always reach out to them for support as well if you just didn't vibe with the teacher or professor that you went to ask for help. If none of these tips work for you and you still can't bring yourself to actually go and meet with a teacher either virtually or in person for office hours, emailing is the next best thing. But try for yourself to implement some of the strategies that I mentioned in the video and see if going to office hours will be a little less scary. Over time, the more you go and interact with professors, the better it's going to be, the easier it's going to feel, and you'll really find yourself benefiting from these interactions. The more you ask for help, the more you engage, and the more you talk to your professors, the more you will learn. What questions do you have about going to office hours, or what office hours are for? Put them in the comments below and let me know if other videos like this will be helpful. Give this video a like if it's been helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you later.